Hollywood Unlocked Uncensored.
What's up, everybody? It's your girl, Melissa Ford, a.k.a. The Curve Queen, and you are checking out Hollywood Unlocked Uncensored.
That's right. It's DJ Damage, and it's time to get this show started.
Okay, so we have a guest host in the building.
Woo.
Jason is still off gallivanting, doing all the fancy stuff
He's
that he
wilding
does.
out.
Yes, he is. He's wilding out.
For sure.
Exactly. So I had an idea this weekend. I posted a video of a military guy coming home, and surprising his father. Yeah. And so his father looked like he was, a painter or something like that, had a van and whatnot. And he was talking on the phone or talking to somebody off camera. And then his son comes up behind him and surprises him. And he's literally surprised. And, the cynics in all of us wonder, was it staged or not? But then when the father expressed surprise, and then he starts crying.
Like a dad cry.
And he was, my baby's home. Yeah. I mean, okay, so it took me all the way out, but I noticed certain things about the video. Number one was, the fact that this man was calling his grown son, a military man, his baby, which I loved. Yeah. And I also, observed witnessing anxiety leaving his body,
that worry.
Yeah. And so what it made me want to do, what it inspired me to want to do, is to put a strong focus on an episode on Black fathers. Because I really don't think that they are depicted in a fair manner.
No, I agree.
A lot of the times they're depicted as deadbeat or uninvolved. And this was a story. Apparently this man raised his kids on his own, and it's like a real tearjerker that should be turned into a Lifetime movie, but I digress. So that is why I wanted to have you on as a guest. We've got Remi Adeleke.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, come on.
Okay. He's written a book called Transformed, and this looks like it's going to be a good read. Hold on one second. I have to do this.
Yeah. It's fresh.
She loves smelling the pages. That's a real reader right there. Yeah. That's a true reader.
I love smelling the pages.
Fresh pages.
Yeah, of an unopened book. I love it. I love it. Okay, and so it says, a Navy SEAL's unlikely journey from the throne of Africa to the streets of the Bronx to defying all odds. That you've lived at least 3 lifetimes from this, synopsis. So
the Bronx?
Yeah, the Bronx is
still crazy.
It's still crazy. I was just out there last week.
It is. Okay, so welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Yes, thank you so much for coming on the show. And you are a father yourself.
3 boys.
Three boys.
3 boys, yeah. 3
okay.
Tearing that house up.
Yeah. Man.
So how old are they?
My oldest is 5. My middle is about to be 4. My youngest is 7 weeks.
Oh, they fresh, baby.
Ooh,
Yeah.
7 weeks.
7 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I mean, I have so many questions, so I'm gonna try and do this in chronological order and not drive our audience crazy by going all over the place. So I need to understand. This might be a big ask, but define for us what that means, journey from the throne of Africa.
Yeah.
So you're Nigerian descent.
I'm Nigerian, yes. So my dad, it kind of starts with my grandfather. My grandfather, he was a chief in the Yoruba tribe, a royal chief within the Yoruba tribe. And European culture, we refer to, or Western culture, royalties referred to as king, queen, prince, princess, Dutch. And West African culture, and a lot of African culture, royalties referred to as chief and also by your name. So my last name, Adeleke. Ade means crown and Leke means above. My full name is actually Remi. So Remi means the crown has appeased me. So my grandfather took the title Adeleke, and that was passed. And my grandfather had like 9 wives. Because that was normal in the culture at the time, in Yoruba culture in Nigeria. So my dad was the firstborn son to my grandfather. So my dad inherited Chief Adebayo Adeleke. So I was essentially, and by the time I came around, my father had built this massive enterprise. He was a businessman, a philanthropist. He engineered one of the first man-made islands in the world. Really? It exists to this day in Lagos. It's called Banana Island. And he was just way ahead of his time. And because of his success, I was essentially born into wealth. I was born into that title. But unfortunately, in 1987, and there's way more to the story, I break it all down in my book, the Nigerian government stripped my father of all of his assets.
Wow.
And our family went from, and my dad died a few days later. while he was fighting them. So our family went from rich, having everything, to poor, like having nothing.
Wow.
And so that's where the African throne of Africa piece comes from in the story.
Okay, so you went from very wealthy, affluent, to poverty. And so where does the Bronx come into the story?
It kind of, my dad has his land and my mom's side. So my mom met my dad, and I tell people all the time, my mom and my dad's story is the real coming to America story with anyone. Because my mom was American. She was a flight attendant living in New York, partying, having a good time, chilling. And
I hear the New York in your voice.
Yeah.
Bringing me back.
Yeah, so, and then she met my dad at the Metropolitan Museum of Natural History.
Oh, wow.
Okay, that's a good place to meet.
Nice meet cute.
Yeah.
Okay.
Both getting their education on.
Yeah. They were. It was actually an exhibit on Yoruba sculptures, and my dad just happened to be in New York, so they ended up falling in love, getting married. 5 months later, my dad moved my mom to Africa, so she moved to Zamunda,
Wow.
So, all that. So when my dad died, my mom was just like, "There's no way I'm raising my kids here in Africa." So that's when she moved us back to what she knew, which was New York, the Bronx. So that's how I ended up there.
Right. Okay. What part of the Bronx did you live in?
Fordham and Sedgwick. Yeah.
And you said, how many siblings did you have?
I have one full-blooded brother, so it was me and my brother. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So how old were you when you moved to
5?
5.
Yeah.
Okay. So does a culture shock kind of take place at that time?
You know what? People ask me that question all the time. What I always say is my mom, she did a fantastic job of masking the reality of what was going on. Mm-hmm. Like the best analogy I could use, it was as though my mom was a director on a movie set. Mm-hmm. And she just painted this set to be beautiful and to be great, but on outside the set was chaos. Mm-hmm. So much so that I remember when my dad died, my mom placed my brother on the right side, placed me on the left side, and it was this red couch. And she said to us in such a calm, easy manner, "Your father has died and he's not coming back." And it was in such a calm way that me and my brother looked at each other and we just went back to playing and my mom did that because she knew that if she was breaking down, we would break down, and we broke down, she would break down more. So the culture shock wasn't too much for me. It wasn't until I was 8 years old that it finally hit me that my dad was gone, because, just looking at our situation, it was times when my mom didn't have enough food to feed herself.
Right.
She had just enough food to feed my brother. Now, there were times when I go to the rent office with her, she would have to beg for an extra day or 2 days to pay the bills.
Right.
And so as I got older and I'm experiencing this and experiencing sharing clothes and all these other things, that's when the reality set in. Wow, like this is our life.
Yeah.
And we don't have the life that we used to have.
Yeah.
So that's when it finally hit me at 8.
Wow.
First of all, salute to moms.
I was you took the words literally right out of my mouth.
Moms make it happen.
Yeah.
They really know how to make it happen.
Moms do. But this is an episode.
Of course, look, we're gonna represent.
This is an episode devoted to you, and to every other father, specifically Black fathers. Yeah. We're hoisting you up on our shoulders today because that doesn't happen enough. I am so sick and tired of the narrative that that Black men are deadbeat. They're not involved in their children's lives. Mm-hmm. I can't speak on any and all and every circumstance, but what I see is way too many examples of men who are not celebrated for for the efforts that they have, and the silent effort. They're not looking for a crown or a doggy biscuit or a medal or anything like that. They're doing what they have to do. Yeah. But I wanted to take the time to really kind of like promote the fact that this is normal.
Yes.
Very yes. Do you remember your relationship with your father?
Yeah, I remember, it comes in bits and pieces. Mm-hmm. I remember one story in particular. So I was about maybe 4 years old, 4.5, and me and my brother got into a fight. Mm-hmm. My brother, he takes my head and he pushes up against the wall. Right. And my head goes through like the sheetrock of the wall. And I just remember my dad being furious and just lighting my brother up. And the reason why was because my dad, he was very intellectual. Mm-hmm. And so to him, the most valuable asset that a person had was their brain.
Right.
So when my brother did that, my dad was flipping out because my dad was saying, you are affecting my other son's most valuable asset, his brain. And so I'll never forget that because my dad went cataclysmic.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, he was an awesome man. He did everything to provide the life for my brother and I that we had, you know, and when he was fighting the Nigerian government, there's so much more to the story, you know. Everything that he was doing was to sustain the family's name because he wasn't just taking care of my brother and I. He had a lot of siblings and he had nieces and nephews that he provided for as well, you know. So yeah, those are the main things I remember about him, how he was just so giving, and he was just that type of cat that he just wanted to help people. And he really wanted to build up Nigeria. And that was because he was educated in Europe. Yeah. He got a full ride scholarship to study engineering and architecture in London. And he spent a lot of time in the West building up businesses. And that's when he decided, I need to get back to Africa to build up my country because I don't want people to look at Africans. And the stereotype is we're a bunch of people who live in the bush and run around with spears and we're uneducated fools. He wanted people to realize that Nigerians are brilliant, and he wanted to go back to kind of essentially make Nigeria a beacon for all the world to look to. So my dad he wasn't just a father to me and my brother and his nieces and nephews. He was a father to his nation, you know? And so that's why it really hurt me. And I talk about it in my book, you know, after what was done to him by the government. So
right. So growing up in the Bronx, you know, single parent household, your mom's got to raise you and your brother. So just by no other means other than your father being taken from you, you are now a statistic. You know. The Bronx is to this day, it's an extraordinarily difficult place to grow up. It's tough. And so what was it like growing up in the Bronx, having to kind of get adjusted to the new normal, which is, you know, kind of, you know, not going without, just living in poverty and, you know, in terms of like gang recruitment, you know, illicit and illegal activity, you know, knowing that your mom is struggling to make ends meet and probably thinking to yourself, well, I can help out, but it's probably not going to be on the up and up. You know, what was that like for you?
That's what it was. I mean, for me, as soon as I got into my early teens, 11, 12, that's when I was just like, you know, I got to provide, you know, like, and I started out doing all kinds of stuff, you know, stealing, you know, going into bodegas, stealing chips, you know, candy bars, this and that, then getting jobs and stealing from jobs, you know, and then that progressed into selling drugs, and then that progressed into running high level cell phone scams. And, you know, I was doing that in my heart. I work in the inner city now. You know, I have a mentorship program called City Hope. And most of the kids that I deal with, none of them have fathers in their lives. And so I try to be a father figure to them. I hate to go down this direction, but I'm saying this for a point. And so it's easy for me to empathize with them when they do things that I used to do. Right. You know what I mean? Because when you've never been there, it's easy for somebody to say, oh, like that kid's a knucklehead. Why is he doing that? He's this and he's that. Look, just another black dude doing whatever. And I empathize with them because I was there, and I know, like, in my heart wasn't to bug out just for the sake of bugging out. My heart was like, I was trying to survive. You know what I mean? I was trying to help my mom survive. And so that's what I did, man. And eventually it all caught up with me. You know, I got involved in the deal with a drug dealer, went bad. You know, I sold him some products that were supposed to last for a certain amount of time and only lasted for a fraction of that time. And that's when he came knocking on my door and threatened my life, you know. But that was the wake-up call that kind of catapulted me out of that life. Yeah.
Okay. So, and then Navy SEALs, how does that happen? Because that's kind of sexy. Is that the tattoos are on the arm? Yeah, I've known a couple of you guys.
Yeah. But the Navy SEAL, you guys go in first, right?
Yeah, we do a lot of stuff. Well, yeah, sometimes most of the time we go in first, or we go into places that nobody don't go into, period. You know? So, I found out about the SEAL teams through film, actually. There was a film called The Rock that came out in 96.
Oh, yeah, Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, Sean Connery.
And Bad Boys influenced me, too, because that was the first time I saw two black men who were like, they were playing dad, and, you know, Martin Lawrence was playing a dad, and I kind of looked up to his character a lot, but also they were playing heroes who were cool. And then The Rock came out a year later, and that was the first time I was exposed to SEALs. And so after I saw that, I kind of decided, you know, if I ever turn my life around, that's what I would do. You know, fast forward to when I decided to join the Navy. When I got to boot camp, a recruiter put on a presentation of what SEALs do, and I was just like, I'm doing that. And then I went to training. You know, I couldn't swim. I didn't have the academic scores, and I was skinny, but for a year, I just trained. I just worked out, jumped in the pool, studied the academics that I needed to study. And then a year later, I went to SEAL training.
Made it happen.
Okay, so do you go in depth in terms of, you know, maybe some clandestine missions that you had with the SEALs?
I had to be, the Pentagon had to screen my book, and it took them 8 months to screen. Yeah. Nah, it's the process. Everybody would, because I had a TSSCI clearance, so everybody with that kind of clearance, you gotta get your book screened to make sure you don't have classified in there. So there is some stuff in there, but it was completely watered down. I tried to spend a lot of time on training, you know, and why I did that too was because, you know, less than 1% of special operations in general is less than 1% are African American. I was like the 50th African American in the history of the SEAL teams, and SEAL teams were established in 1962.
That surprises me because I kind of think that, you know, black men would excel.
They do. The black dudes that do go and make it, they are the best operators.
So would you say that there's a little bit of institutional racism there?
I do, but at more at the educational standpoint. And what I mean by that is, and I talk about this a lot, is exposure. Like in inner city schools, there's no exposure to special operations. There's no real exposure to the CIA. There's no real exposure to these things. Like when I started working at I did like 3 months at the SEAL recruitment division, and we get sent to suburban areas. We get sent to beaches where lifeguards are to recruit, but we don't get sent to inner city schools. And so if the inner city schools don't have the exposure, if minorities don't have the exposure, they don't know. Knowledge is power. So if you don't know about it, how are you going to know that you could do it?
Do you feel like it's an intimidation thing? Because I've talked to a couple inner city schools, and if you're not really built like that, it ain't going to work out for you.
Man, you know, it's funny because I have the hardest time getting into inner city schools. Like inner city schools, I don't know what it is.
Oh.
I went to my high school last week and I was like, yo, I just want to come share my story, inspire the kids in the Bronx, and you can't come in.
Why?
I don't know. Same thing happened 2 years ago. After I worked on the Transformers film, Paramount Pictures had me on part of the press tour, and what they wanted to do was they wanted me to go to my high school and do a story about me speaking. The high school was like, no, you can't come in. It happens all the time.
And they just gave you no reason.
No reason. It happens all the time. But when it comes to suburban school, come, speak, good. Whenever you want to come, you know what I'm saying? So I think I think when we talk about the institutional racism, I think it goes back. It starts in the beginning.
Right.
I think it goes back to education.
Yeah.
At the school. Access.
I wholeheartedly agree.
Because the resources in a lot of inner city schools are like, I'm sorry.
No, I wholeheartedly agree. I mean, I used to run a book club at a school in Brooklyn in grade 7, 8. Yeah. And I mean, these kids were freaking brilliant. I mean, I challenged them with reading The New Jim Crow. Yeah. That is not a light read. I know adults that cannot get through that book, okay? Yeah. And it's about, modern day slavery. Incarceration is the new modern day slavery. Yeah. And these kids, I mean, they were chapters ahead. I was like, okay, so we're going to be talking about, summarizing chapter 1. And they were like, Miss Ford, we're already at like chapter 5. I was like, I'm not at chapter 5, but the culmination of the book club was to take them to for me, I wanted to take them to Georgetown University.
Yeah. That's dope.
Because I wanted them to see what this university campus looked like. Yeah. I wanted them to see that your immediate environment might not be telling you that this can be in your future. Yeah. But this is what your future looks like if this is what you wanted. Absolutely. And it just was like, a lot of the kids said afterwards, they were like, Miss Ford, I've only seen that stuff on TV. Yeah. It seemed like something that was completely unattainable until we went there. And that's all it takes. So this is just disturbing to me.
It is.
It's the exposure.
Yeah.
If you don't have the exposures.
That's wild because, I mean, in my city in Philly, I did a school tour. There was a STD epidemic. And I pledged to the mayor that I'm going to go talk to 13 schools and do what I can do. Mm-hmm. And we didn't have any pushback from any of the schools, but I think it was alarming to go to some of these schools because I went to a different kind of school. I went to a boarding school. Yeah. To walk through the metal detectors, to see people in 10th grade that's 6'2" with tattoos on their face. Yeah. It was like a different environment. So that's why I'm like, you got to really be built to be talking to those kids because they're not listening to anybody. Like you have to have a rapport. You have to have something you really telling them. Because all this we are the world shit, they not trying to hear.
Exactly.
Well, he looks like he might be able to fit in.
No, of course. That's why I'm like, I'm surprised. But even, I'm just saying the guys before you, even though we already figured out what the problem was, what we didn't, but I would definitely see you, connecting to those people, but maybe people before him where he said he's the 50th.
Yeah.
You can't just walk in that school like, hey, join the Navy SEAL. They're like, who?
Yeah, like who? What?
Yeah, who are you?
I think it all goes back to storytelling. And that's why I wrote the book, because there are a lot of white SEALs who were writing books and all these kids are reading them. And so I was like,
so they're getting an idea as to what it looks like.
Exactly.
It doesn't look like you or you.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It just looks like, I don't know, Dolph Lundgren or something that.
Yeah.
It looks like,
Bruce Willis.
Bruce Willis or something like that, or maybe even The Rock, even though he's Simone, but still, he's still a freak of nature. So City Hope,
City Hope
is your nonprofit.
Yep.
So do you take the opportunity to tell your mentees about, Navy SEALs and show, and, kind of give them an insight as to what the program looks like? And are you able to use that as a channel?
Yes and no. Like for me, it's more of, I try to meet their needs, right? And whatever their needs are. For some of them, they're so young, Navy SEAL is not even something that's on their radar. So my thing with them is education.
Yeah. Right.
So that, like, I just want them to do well in school. So we try to work with them on the issues that they're struggling with within the school, whether it's behavior that's keeping them out of the classroom, whether it's math, whether it's the sciences. If they're having issues with their teacher, I show up. And I'm like, what's going on? And I put my finger on it. I can't really spank them, and I don't spank them. I want it, but I just get in their face and I say, let's get it together. So if the SEAL thing comes up, it mainly comes up because they're like, man, like, I've been thinking about the military, but I don't like to put it out there like that.
Yeah.
My thing is I'd rather them go to college,
right?
Or and go down that route. But if they're like, hey, I want to go to the military, then I'll kind of give them information on that.
Okay.
Or if they want to go to the SEAL teams, and I'm always telling them about it, and they have me ask questions, but I don't tell them about it to get them to get into it. I tell them about it to expose them to the information so they know they're aware of their options.
And I would love to come down there and talk to some of them, because
absolutely.
I remember me being in school. I really had no real inspiration to do good in school, but just for myself. So it goes back to us talking about self-love. It's like, don't do it for me, do it for you. And this is why you're doing it for you. Like, it sounds so cliche. I remember being a kid, listening to somebody, think about your future.
Yeah.
Who gives a fuck about, like, I remember sitting like, why do they keep talking about this fucking future? And then the future comes. It's like, you're young. I mean, you're older way longer than you're young.
Yeah.
And you don't get how fast that future is coming. I would love to come down there to talk to them.
We'll exchange information.
Oh, yeah, for
I'm
sure.
be down there. I know there's short notice. I got an event I'm doing with them on Friday. I'll be at the school on Friday.
Now, I might could do Friday.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, good. I love that we just, set something up here.
I mean, I just remember sitting down and having people try to talk to me, and I'm just like, I really don't care, but maybe I'm gonna do it.
Then I love that the memory is still so fresh for you, because then you're gonna have a different way of like articulating, a story to them. Yeah. You've got a lot of slashes after your name. Navy SEAL, actor, entrepreneur, writer, successful husband and father. I want to talk about being the successful husband and father.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so tell me how you met your beautiful wife.
Match.com.
Talk about
lying.
social media.
Stop lying.
Match.com.
He filled out that extensive profile.
I was sleek with it. But
okay, I need to hear this story.
Yeah, so I was, before, when I dated, it was like I met a girl in the club, or out and about, and and when I got older, I got 26. I was just like, man, I'm not trying to meet a
26.
girl.
Wait, 26 is older? Wait, hold on. Okay.
When I got, I'm 37 now.
Okay.
I'm telling the story from back then.
Okay.
But when I got 26, I was like, I got to the point in my life where I was like, I'm not looking for a girlfriend.
Okay.
I was like, I'm looking for a wife.
Switch.
Right?
Right.
Like that. I had this mindset change. And then I was like, okay, where am I going to find a wife? So I was like, I'm going to try Match.com.
What year was this that you decided to try?
This was 2011. I've been married 8 years, 2011.
Okay.
May of 2011, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. So we did 9 years ago. Okay. So I went on and I was like, I'm gonna just do a 30-day trial.
Okay.
I'm not paying because the 30-day trial is free.
You feel like a creep. You start paying for it.
I know. I feel like a savage. Right? So I set up the 30-day trial, and then at the end of my 30-day trial was the beginning of my wife. The last week of my 30-day trial was the first week of my wife's 30-day trial. Uh-huh. And we met, our trials overlapped by a week. And I had met some other girls on there, but like she she was the one. I felt like she was the one.
Okay, I have to know. Okay.
Yeah.
What? Like, what the picture was like? Whoa.
Of course.
And
You know what?
then that was it.
Nah, it wasn't.
Or her bio. Did you read the bio?
Yeah,
I did read the bio. I did read the bio. But the thing was, well, she winked at me.
Okay.
Because on the Match.com app in the back of the day, you send a wink. Like, if you're too scared to say something, you send a wink. So she sent a wink at me. So I went to her bio and I looked it up. I was like, all right, she's pretty attractive. But I don't really go off the picture.
Yeah, because the picture could be lying.
The picture could be lying. And I had that, and like 2 weeks later, 2 weeks earlier, I had like the picture thing where this girl had a picture up. I was like, yo, she's nice. And I went and saw her, and she was like total opposite. And the whole day she's trying to explain to me why she changed from the picture. But anyway, that's a whole nother story. But like, so she went and I saw her and I was like, okay, she's attractive. She wasn't my type, but I was like, she's attractive. So we went on a date, and the first date I wasn't into her. I was just like, you know what? After this date, I'm not gonna see anymore because there was just no real connection there. And then she hit me up for a second date, and we got together, and we had a conversation. Like, yeah, I think on the first date, a lot of first dates is a lot of exterior.
Yeah,
it's like, this is what I do. This is what I do. This is what.
Yeah.
But the second date was like, it was like a heart to heart conversation. Yeah. It was like. She went deep into her background and where she came from and where she'd been through. And
so she became a person.
Yeah. And it was the same thing with me. I felt confident to open up to her.
Yeah.
And once we both opened up and all of the credentials, because she's a doctor, so all of the credentials and all the other stuff.
Okay. That's the second date. That's second date worth.
Come on,
let's figure this out.
When all of, the Navy SEAL, the doctor, when all that was washed away and I got to see the soul, that's when I was like, man, like this is a woman I could be with. And we ended up getting married like 4 or 5 months later.
What?
Yeah.
Your story is so awesome.
Yeah.
No, so like I knew that he was a father and a husband and whatnot. So a friend of mine just like kind of sent me this game. And this is a game to kind of break the ice and get conversations going. You know what I mean? So like my big sister made this game.
Let's do it.
And so I picked the first card. Let me get this.
Both of us?
Oh yeah. So the game's called Shifted. There you go. Yeah, Shifted. Will you change your mind?
Yeah.
And so
are you just asking him, or I'm exempt? I don't know.
No. This is for both of you.
Yeah.
No, this is a show. No, the show's all about men.
Okay, cool.
Okay,
cool.
This is a big old love affair for men.
Put him in the hot seat.
Yeah.
So I love this question is so like apropos because of what you're talking about. What do you believe is the key to a happy romantic relationship?
Ooh, that's a good question.
And then because you guys, there's an age gap between the two of you. So let's ask the youngin.
Okay. So it gives me time to think about
it. Happy romantic relationship.
What do you believe is the key to a happy romantic relationship? So you're single and you're 10 years younger than him and more than that than me. And you're happily married for quite a while now. So our perspectives are going to be completely different. So I can't wait to hear this.
A happily romantic relationship.
Yes.
They can start with communication for sure. Somebody you can always talk to no matter what the circumstance. I know I dated some people where it's certain things I just knew I couldn't talk to them about. I didn't feel completely open. It's like, what they say going to probably piss me off.
Yeah.
So I think it starts with communication, good affection.
Yeah.
And affection being mutual, where some people affection is different. Some people don't like to be touched. Some people love to be touched. Some people want to be overly touched.
We have different love languages.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think making that mesh, communication and being funny. I think when you could just laugh with somebody you're attracted to and really just have fun, and it's not all about being intense and kissing and fucking. It's like, this is great.
That's why comedians usually have multiple babies, because a funny motherfucker will get, they get us. They get us. Yeah.
So I think that's it. I'll keep it simple.
Okay.
For me.
So you've been married for quite a while now. You have boys, and a lot of times children kind of make the, children kind of make the romance kind of wane a little bit sometimes. So how do you
figure it out though? We get around that though.
But laundry room visit.
At least you got boys.
Rooms, wait till everybody go to sleep. You know, I would. The first thing that comes to mind for me is security, and what I mean by that is the opposite of insecurity. I think like what I love about my wife, or what makes me passionate about, is how secure she is, and how secure she is about herself.
Right.
And I think that that's one thing that attracts her to me, is there's a confidence. So, and because we both have this confidence, it doesn't allow room for jealousy, for cattiness, because we're secure in who we are. And so I think from a romance perspective, that's huge for us. I think that's huge for me in my marriage. Now, I hope that doesn't sound like a corny answer, but
no, it's not.
No.
It sounds like a man who's in love with his wife.
Yeah.
Sounds like that kind of answer.
I think insecurity should be labeled as a mental health issue. So when you saying that, it's like I feel like insecurity causes so many conflicts, but that's another.
Because I've been in relationships in the past where, the girl I was dating was very, very insecure, and that affected romance in the relationship. You know what I mean? And then so to be with my wife and have her be secure in who she is, and then me be secure, that brings more romance, because there's trust, and which is another element to romance. You gotta trust, and then knowing each other and knowing each other's bodies and all of that. So,
he shit.
Okay.
That's it. Trust and
that works,
security.
but-
No,
it do.
No, that makes perfect sense. So I just want to backtrack just a little bit to go. So your father passed away when you were 5, moved to the Bronx. Was there any, male father figure that moved into your life at any point? Did your mom remarry, or your mom doesn't seem like the kind of woman that would have any kind of strange man around her boys? She ain't having some dude babysit her children type thing. Okay.
She never remarried.
Okay.
She never remarried since my dad. My mom's 60, about to be 67. But no, my grandfather, but he lived in Florida. And he would come up from time to time to spend time with my brother and I. But he died, I think, when I was like 12, 13. And then I had an Uncle Mike. My Uncle Mike, he lived in New Rochelle, which is outside of the Bronx. And he would come take my brother from time to time. But as far as a consistent male role model in my life, I didn't have one.
Okay, so you now being the father of 3 boys, this has obviously been a learning lesson for you every step of the way. Absolutely. So where did you find yourself kind of like inside your head, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing? When did those moments happen for you when it came to being a father?
Yeah, I mean, it happened a lot. I mean, I really relied on like my military training. And what I mean by that is where I got a lot of my lessons on how to be a father in SEAL training.
Okay.
And being in the SEAL teams, because especially as it relates to integrity, living by example, all of these things. So when I finally had kids, that's what I really relied upon. But yeah, I made mistakes as it relates to discipline. I've made mistakes because my mom, she would give it to my brother. Now.
Right.
Right.
Go get the switch. Yeah. Pull it right off that tree right there. Yeah. You know the one. And bring it inside.
Yeah. And my mom she was really aggressive, but not in an abusive way. She was aggressive in, I'm the mom. I don't have anybody here to help me. So, I'm going to be hard because I got to be hard. And so as a father, I thought that was the way to always be with my kids. You know what I mean? My wife had to put me in check a lot and say, yo, Remi, like, you know what I mean? Like they're little kids. Relax, take a step back. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so that's where I've made mistakes in the past. I've also made mistakes in time. Right. Because I'm trying to always find that balance between I need to provide for my family, but I need to be with my family. And it breaks my heart, man. There's times when my kids call me up because I travel so much and they're like, Daddy, please come home. You know what I mean? And so that's where I'm still trying to learn as a father how to balance it, how to really, and when I say balance it, I don't mean just be there, because I could be in the house with my kids, but not be in the house with my kids. I could be on the phone, replying to emails, texting, work and stuff.
Not being present, so mentally present.
Exactly. Right. So that's where I can improve on, and where I'm trying to put, and I think I have improved on, especially over the coming years. But yeah, just trying to find that balance between providing and time.
Okay, well, let me ask you this. So, there's a phrase that gets thrown around a little bit too arbitrarily, in my opinion, which is called, it's toxic masculinity.
Okay,
I mean, you're Nigerian. Yeah. You grew up in the Bronx. Yeah. You're a Navy SEAL. Yeah. I'm like, you're freaking alpha as they come. You know what I'm saying? So when it comes to the whole concept of toxic masculinity, when it comes to disciplining your child, since you have 3 boys, and damn it, you come into this conversation as well. when it comes to disciplining your boys, like, do you find it difficult to not suppress or try when you want to, suppressing them from crying or like just being children? I mean, because I think the whole concept of toxic masculinity is when people are like, you know, telling male children like stop crying like a girl and that sort of thing. Like, do you let your boys
absolutely.
be the children that they are? Okay,
I let them cry. I let them whine. I hug my kids.
Yeah,
I kiss them.
Yeah,
I tell them I love them.
Yeah,
like. Men are we were created to be emotional just as women were created to be emotional.
That is an unpopular opinion. It's no one really says that, and I agree with you.
And in my book, you know, a lot of people who read my book, they tell me all the time, Remi, like, dude, like, why were you so vulnerable? Like, people gonna look at you because I talk about crying in my book. I talk about
These must be older dudes.
I talk about
everybody crying now.
I talk about crying as a kid. I talk about crying as an adult. I talk about going through crazy stuff in relationships. And I think it's important because it's okay for the strongest men that I know are men who are willing to let out their emotions and men who are willing to allow their children to let out their emotions. Yeah. Because when you do that, going back to the whole security thing, that shows that you're secure. You're confident in who you are.
Yeah.
And so for me and my kids, I think it's okay for them if they hurt themselves or something happens on the playground for them to express themselves. There's nothing wrong with that.
And I think that's the balance. I ask my son, is it worth your tears? I always ask him that because my son, he gets like in fits sometimes if the chicken nuggets aren't done quick enough, or I wanted that toy from the store and you started crying. It's like, bro, is these worth your tears? Do you not have toys at home? And I try to, instead of disciplining, I really try to talk to my son so he can understand me, like, understand what we're doing here right now. You have toys at home. Do you need another toy? And if you had another toy, are you going to lose? Like, you know, I really try to, I don't care how young he was. I always talk to him, like, to try to ration with him because his mind, like, just because he's a child, he still has a mind.
Yes.
And the more I try to ration with him, I think the more he'll become a mature adult, younger. So some stuff, like, you got to chalk it up. If you fall and hit your knee, you can cry. But if you're crying about,
the other day.
the SpaghettiOs aren't ready when you wanted them. It's like, look, I'm not your maid, dude. There's a balance.
100%.
Is it worth your tears? So that's 100%. What I always say.
That's a good one. Is it worth your tears? I like that.
Okay, so when did you decide, I got to put my life on paper? Like, it's time for a memoir, you know, because 37 is like, you know, you've lived a lot of life, you know, 3 lifetimes pretty much from all the experiences and stuff, but you're still really young, you know, in the grand scheme of things. You know, God willing, you've got about, you know, 40, 50 years in front of you. You listen, let me tell you a statistic, okay? Married men live longer.
Oh, that's good.
You want to know why?
Why is that?
Because we're always picking up after you motherfuckers.
Oh, that's true.
And we're always telling you to go to the doctor when something's wrong, or, you know, the women,
that's right. That's true.
We take care of our men. We're the ones that die early when we get married. Okay?
I'm sorry about that.
Single forever. No, but so where was the, you know, the light bulb moment where you said it's time to put my life on paper, create this memoir? You know, when did that happen, and what was the light bulb moment?
Well, it was, you know, it was a few things. You know, for years, people who just heard the Africa to the Bronx part of my story, they were like, dude, like, that's a crazy story. You need to write a book. And then when I became a SEAL and then got out the SEAL teams, and that element was, people like, man, you really need to write a book. And for years I said no, because, and I got approached with book deals and I said no, because there's a stigma attached to Navy SEALs who write books. There's a saying in our community, called, you know, the silent professional.
Okay.
Don't go out and talk about the work or the job that you did. And
we got reality shows about like mob wives and shit. So you know, institutions are just falling apart here.
Yeah, there you go. So, you know, I said no for a long period of time, and then I went on the Today Show. to promote Transformers, and while I was on the show, Kathy Lee Gifford, she said live on air, you need to write a book and it needs to be made into a movie. I nodded and said, outside, but on the inside, I'm saying no. When we get backstage, she pulls me aside and she's like, I'm serious. You need to write a book. And I told her no. And she said, why? And I gave her the explanation. And she said, that's foolish. She was like, you have a story that can inspire so many people. Please do this. And she walked me to the publisher.
Really?
And she walked me to HarperCollins Publishing.
Not a lot of people can say that Kathy Lee Gifford walked you into a publisher
and told him, you better sign this guy to a book deal right now before I take him somewhere else. And I got the book deal. So
I'm sick right now.
yeah. So, when that's how it came about. I wasn't looking to write a book. I wasn't inspired to write a book. It just happened. And
your publicist BJ Coleman, who's a very good friend of mine forever. He handed me the book. I was like, this is expensive. Okay, this isn't an independent, run. It's a
hardback.
This is official tissue here.
That's top notch.
Okay, and you got a quote from Kathy Lee Gifford.
Yeah.
Oh wow. She says that you've truly transformed in the deepest sense of the word, and his book will have a lasting impact on many souls. Okay, well, she's consistent.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. Like, congratulations. I'm like, that's
Thank you.
That's an amazing accomplishment.
It's inspiring too.
Yeah, one or two people in this room have yet to do.
It's coming.
I'm talking about myself.
It's coming.
I'm just like, it's gonna be in the book. People are like, Melissa, shut the fuck up. The book is never gonna fucking happen.
But your book would like really do the thing.
Yeah.
You know what?
Like seriously.
The purpose of my book will be to motivate and to inspire the same way as
the person who works for the publisher right out there.
Come on, somebody. Come on, somebody. It's time.
Okay.
It's time to tell the story.
I'm steal her ear for about 5 minutes after we're done. But no, this is all about you guys and the fathers and the husband. And
sorry about that.
Just no. But just thank you so much for being like, just being so dope. You know what I'm saying? And just not. I just hate the stereotype exists for a reason. But I mean, have you thought about, kind of making, I don't know, a YouTube channel about your happy home and the boys and stuff like that? Because I think that we are, we need more positive examples like this, put out there. Like, I'm tired of the perpetuated notion that Black fathers are absentee or, non-existent or whatever the case, or deadbeat or whatever the case is. And I love to hear stories about this because these are the experiences that I know about. I mean, my father died when I was 15 years old, but he was very much a part of my life. My parents were married. And so it breaks my heart to just kind of see this perpetual narrative just kind of, flung around like dirty laundry, I
agree. And I'm hoping that, through my life and through my story, I could help change that narrative.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's a good idea. I never thought about doing a YouTube channel or anything like that. But, maybe I need to do that, because people listen because of the platform I have.
No, you shouldn't. I think real fathers, they don't want to exploit. It's nothing to exploit. I feel like we feel like we're not doing something great. We're doing what we're supposed to do.
Yeah.
And on social media, you see I will say it's primarily female driven when it comes to those narratives. Mm-hmm. Good fathers aren't going on Instagram like good father alert, I'm the greatest dad. Usually that's a red flag. Like he's probably not.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So there aren't really a lot of platforms for us. Like a lot of good dads are busy being dads.
Yeah.
That's why sometimes I gotta be like, man, I gotta show my relationship with my son more because I'm speaking. And when I do those posts, a lot of fathers is like, you repping for us.
Yeah.
Because they're not jumping on social media, finding the good angle with their kid, they're putting that work in.
It's interesting you say that because when I do post a picture of me and my kids, people respond to it. A lot of people respond to it. So maybe I might need to do that even more.
Yeah.
So. You should.
Yeah. I mean, like the engagement is there because, like I said, it's not a narrative that is highly publicized. It's not as prevalent online as it is to see a woman's ass. So maybe it should be. So it becomes a little bit more of a, it's not seen as rare as a polar bear. You know what I mean? The concept of a Black man who's actually involved in his children's lives.
Absolutely.
Like it's frustrating just for me, just from an outsider looking into the whole situation. So,
and a lot of, I don't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
A lot of it is pride too. Like a lot of those women, even if you're not with that man and he's the father of your child and he's doing his thing, you don't see a lot of that celebration too. Just because it didn't work out, you see a lot of the bitterness. Yeah. And then even when the bitterness is over, you don't see that person going, you know what? Shout out to him. He's a good dad. Yeah. They'll just, He's just doing what he's supposed to do,
Yeah.
which I respect. But the same way you have that energy when you're bitter, if you guys aren't on bad terms and that person's handling their business, why can't you big them up as well?
Celebrate that.
Yeah.
Celebrate
Because
that.
I always, when I can, I'll be like, my son has a great mom.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, he has a dope mom. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, because sometimes people think I'm a single father. I'm like, no, my son has a great mom.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, no. I could see why people would think that.
And just because we keep our social lives separate, but
Yeah.
my son has a great mom. And
Yeah.
I would never go anywhere and say something's wrong with his mom. It's like, you got to hold that esteem. And I feel like it would be dope for women, and they do, but a little bit more to hold that esteem for us when we do handle our business.
Right. Okay.
No, I agree.
Well, Remi, tell us, besides the book tour must be like dope but exhausting.
Yes, I'm tired. I'm gonna go home for 2 days and then head down south.
Okay. Well, tell us what else you're working on, because you're also an actor and you've got, the list is really extensive. So tell us what is currently on the itinerary.
Yeah, so I just finished working on a Netflix film with Michael Bay and Ryan Reynolds.
Ooh, love
Corey,
Michael
shout out
Bay.
to Corey Hawkins, man.
Yeah.
He's a good dude. He endorsed the book too. It's called Six Underground. It comes out on Netflix in winter of 2019. Did a lot of consulting. So I was hired as a consultant on that film because of my background in special operations.
Yeah.
And then I have an acting role in that as well. So I got that dropping in the winter, and then I got into I wrote a film. So I wrote a film and been meeting with different studios to get that produced. Just trying to see which home is going to be the right home for it.
Really? Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, it's an espionage thriller. So many people have been asking for an African-American James Bond, or not African-American, but a black James Bond. And in my mind, I was just like, man, I have these experiences, because my job, we didn't go into detail in this interview, but I talk about it in my book, but I worked at a lot of intelligence in the SEAL teams. So I've done work with the CIA, I've done work with the NSA and DIA, a bunch of different three-letter agencies. I went to the NSA Interagency Training Center.
Is it as cool as it sounds?
It's legit.
Yeah.
It's cool.
I've worked with the CIA. Listen, that's what I tell guys I want to talk to. So what do you do for a living?
Yeah.
I work for the CIA and I'm a professional dog walker.
Yeah.
That's
I didn't
what I
work
do.
for the CIA. I've done work with them.
Yeah,
I
okay.
just want to clarify for somebody like what? But I took a lot of those experiences, and I was just like, and I created this African-American character who works for the agency, and he's like, it's called the chameleon for a reason. I'll just kind of leave it at that. And he relies a lot on his experiences from growing up in the inner city to other parts of his life to do the job that he does. So a bunch of different studios have jumped on it after reading the script, and so we're just trying to find the right home for it.
Okay, so is this a vehicle for you? Is a starring role?
No, not
like
at all.
that about you. No ego.
No.
Yeah, and if you are casting for, some like the extra role.
I was about to.
Yeah. I'll keep y'all in mind.
I was about to say, so in a perfect world, the door's wide open and they say, Remi, who do you want to play the lead character?
Yeah.
Who does he look like? Give us like 3 examples.
Yeah, I think Stefan from If Beale Street Could Talk.
Ooh, yeah.
I like him because there's a lot more to the story, and
Where did I
it's a
just
deeper.
see him? John Wick 3?
Was he in John Wick?
No, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't remember. I just saw it recently. I don't remember. I just saw him in something recently. But go on.
I like him. I
He's fabulous.
like Michael B. I think Michael B. Jordan be dope for it because, especially because of his range and his physique, and there's a lot of deep emotional undertones to it. It's not just like an action type thriller, but I like where he can go with it. Man, who's my third choice? I thought about John Boyega. Yeah, I thought about John Boyega.
Pacific.
He was a Pacific Rim.
Yeah, okay.
He was a vehicle
I'm
for him.
shocked
Yeah.
I know that.
Yeah.
I've never even seen the movie.
You seen probably the cover art.
I'm just a wealth of useless information. That's really what it is. If it's about movies and actors, for some reason I pull it out of somewhere and I don't even have to have seen the movie.
Yeah.
Really weird.
Yeah.
But anyways, I digress. He would be great.
Yeah, so those are my three.
He's a silent killer.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I like him a lot.
Me
And
too.
he's Nigerian. He's of Nigerian
I
descent.
think that's
His parents
another
were Nigerian, so.
Yeah.
No.
I have a thing for Nigerian.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We could be trouble sometimes.
Yeah, that's what I've heard a lot of trouble.
Yeah, you
heard a lot of
can.
trouble.
We good dudes
I
overall.
kept that shit to myself. Like,
Yeah, you can. And you know what? In all honesty,
look, we all trouble when you think about it.
Yeah.
yes, you are.
Yeah.
The west side of Africa, I'm a mess.
Yeah,
Congo,
Yeah,
Cameroon, Ghana.
Yeah.
Lord.
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay, I'm back. David just looking at me like, I learned something new about Melissa today. All right. So tell everybody where they can find you social media wise. And the book tour. Are you doing any public book readings or anything like that?
Yeah. So I've done a few already. I have another one coming up June 8th in Mira Mesa, San Diego. I'm doing one there. We're working on one in Dallas, I think June 9th. Okay. And then we're definitely doing one in Charlotte next week.
Okay. Tell everybody where they can see the schedule for these events and the locations and that sort of thing.
Yeah, so I'll post on my social media.
We'll also do the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll make sure that we post that for our listeners.
Appreciate it. So just go to Remi Adeleke on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter, and I'm always posting information out there, or LinkedIn. I know people been like, why do you post LinkedIn? I don't know.
I was gonna say, why are you using LinkedIn? I fucking hate LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Get you a job. Get you a job.
Really?
There's an audience there. There's an audience there.
It never got me a job.
The right people are on LinkedIn.
Listen, I would be on. Check it, okay?
Yeah.
I would be on LinkedIn, and I forgot that I was using it as my own dating thing.
Oh, what you?
Like I was checking guys out because they're like dressed in the suits and they're professional and stuff like that. And I don't. Can you lie on LinkedIn? Can your whole shit be like?
You can.
Okay.
They'll find out.
Well, here's the worst part is my stupid ass forgot that every time you click on a profile,
it shows
the person how many times.
Yeah, that's a whack thing about LinkedIn.
Yeah, it is. So, because I like to be, I'm super duper creeper. I don't like anybody knowing my moves.
Yeah.
And so I gave myself away to this guy. He saw how many times I was stalking his profile.
That's funny.
Oh, that is
but don't sleep on LinkedIn.
It's so embarrassing. Okay, so
hit me on those social media platforms. Remi Adeleke Adeleke.
We're gonna make sure that you're
perfect
right there. I love when Jason that it's right there. So we're gonna put it up for all of our listeners to see. And y'all gotta cop this book. It's in all the good bookstores like Barnes and Nobles and stuff. Yeah.
Amazon.
Yeah.
Indie books.
Exactly. It sounds like it's a fabulous story. Thank you so much for coming on
Thanks
the
for
show.
having me on the show.
Yeah, no, you were awesome. And congratulations on your beautiful family.
Thank you so much.
Your kids' names are Caden, Caleb, and Carter.
Yep.
Whose idea was that?
It just happened.
Yeah?
It just happened. The first one, Caden, was what we wanted, and then Caleb came. We just felt like it was right, and then for the third, it was just like he has to be a C.
Okay. So, what do you think of Kim and Kanye's new kid, Psalm?
The name?
Yeah.
It's an interesting name.
Yeah.
It's an interesting name. I didn't know if that was a nickname or the real name.
Yeah.
It sounds cool. It's different.
Psalm.
I'm not mad at it.
It's different.
Okay.
I've never heard of a kid's named Psalm, but it's interesting and it's different.
I haven't. Listen, it's better than Khaleesi is right now.
I never heard that one.
You don't watch Game of Thrones?
Nah.
Okay. We won't even go there, honey, because the ending was
trash.
Was it?
Yeah, they mailed in that last season. But I digress. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we are out.